Hello, welcome to J Lowe Artist YouTube channel. Today we'll be doing some drawing with graphite. Remember, art makes life better. Thank you for coming today, by the way, and joining me on this little journey that we call art. And doing this little drawing of this hawk. This is a red-tailed hawk. First thing we're going to do is we're going to use our number 2 pencil. And you've got a little bit of tracing paper with you. That tracing paper can be used for lots and lots of different things. But the number one thing is we're going to put our hand on the paper so that we're not going to smear our drawing as we draw it. So first thing we want to do is we want to lay out. We want to do our composition. We want to compose this right. So I'm going to have my entire sheet of paper here. And your hawk, your head is right up at the very top. And so go ahead and just make a little mark there, a little curve, if you will. You can even do a little oval and say that's his head. That's about the size you want his head. You want it right up at the top, and you want it fairly large. Drawing large is going to be easier than drawing smaller. Take your pencil and you kind of put it on your desk there, and you pick it up as if you're going to show it to somebody. And you say, oh, look at my pencil. And then you're going to draw on the side of your lead. Now there's 3 basic reasons why we do that. Number 1, it's fast. Your elbow and your shoulder draw better circles and faster than your wrist does. Number 2 is because you're drawing like this on a wide area of your lead, it sits on the surface of your paper. Everything you draw can be easily erased, or it can be easily manipulated. You can blend it and it'll go really smooth and won't be streaky. So all those reasons make it better to draw like this. Now we're going to use simple shapes. The first one is his head. It's kind of a little oval. And then you want his body to be about 2/3 of the way down. So if this is half your sheet, you want the legs to be about down in here. So there's going to be a leg coming off here, leg coming off here. And it's about right directly under the right side of that little oval you just drew. You come straight down. This is called proportioning, by the way. And then you want his body. What shape is his body? I'm going to do a kind of a football shape, if you will. I don't know, what shape is that? Is there a word for that? You could square it out. You could oval it out. It's not really that big of a deal. There's some wood down here that hides his tail, and so we can just say, oh, okay, there's a log down there, and there's a piece of wood or something. He's on a fence post or something. And then his foot is a triangle, so I'm just going to throw in that triangle. Kite shape, maybe. There's one foot. And the other foot, I can't really tell, kind of C-shaped, oval. So basic shapes, just basic shapes. Look at the basic shapes that are there. And if you wanted to, you could even add a little bit more basic shape, like this wing that's in here. It's, I don't know what shape that is, but it's just kind of rounded up at the top and kind of goes to a little point down there. His beak is kind of triangular. You could kind of put in a little triangle right there. Just a small one. It's a lot smaller than you think it is. There's a little point off of that too. You put that in there. His eye, of course, is round, and it's almost right in the middle of that oval and straight across from the top of his nose. So if I went straight over here, and right about there is his eye. Now it might be too big, so I can make it a little smaller. As you're drawing like this is so fast, but you probably notice I go over things 3 or 4 times until I'm happy with the edge. And then I get rid of what I don't like. So for example, he's got a little wing over here. If I were to put that out here like this, is that too big? A little. Okay, so I go, that's too big. So then I draw it right. Or I keep going until it's right. Now, once I've drawn it right, then I can take my kneaded eraser and get rid of what's wrong. Too often we look at something, we go, oh, that's wrong, and we erase it. Well, you've erased your point of reference, and so you draw it wrong again. And you'll keep drawing it wrong until you get that point of reference in there. And so it's easier to draw it 2 or 3 times, get it so it's right, so it feels right, and then erase what's wrong. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, there's a couple things that you have to get just right. Where the eye goes, where the beak goes, and that's about it. Everything else you can be off a little bit. So spend a little extra time to make sure that the head is just right. Where the eye goes, where the beak is. Try to draw it right. And we're not going to worry about lines around everything. As we draw, this is the edge that we've got. Edges are going to take care of themselves. So please do not go up like this and draw a line around things. Now what I want to do is with the side of my pencil, I'm going to kind of squint my eyes and just draw in the dark shapes that I see. No detail, just dark shapes. So I see this little dark shape that comes under his eye just a little bit. There is a gap, a distance between the eye and this dark shape. I just want to throw in that dark shape with the side of my pencil. I'm just shading it back and forth like this. You're going to have soft fuzzy edges, and that's good because we're going to blend that. We're going to use our cotton swab to blend with. When I was in school, they made us use our fingers, and that used to drive me crazy because I was always scratching my nose or touching your paper, and you get it all messy and So it wasn't until I started teaching that it hit me. Why can't I use a cotton swab? They're cheap, easy to get. So if you YouTube blending, some people on YouTube use cotton swabs now. Didn't ever used to do that. I'd like to think I invented it, but I don't think I did. So I'm just any place that you see a dark shape, just kind of push that in with the side of your pencil. And still, you can erase it if you get too much or do something wrong. It's easy to erase. Erase is so easy. Y'all used kneaded erasers before. So these kneaded erasers are kind of cool. They call them kneaded erasers because in order to clean them, you just pull them apart like this. And you knead them like kneading bread, K-N-E-A-D-E-D, kneaded erasers. And you can pinch them down. You can get like a really thin area. So if you're only wanting to erase a thin area, you pinch it down just to erase that little thin area. So that's why these are called kneaded erasers. So I'm not really concerned about the texture of the feathers. I'm going to show you how to get those in a minute using the side of your pencil and your cotton swab. You can do this same technique with hair. You can do it with grass, trees, leaves, anything that's kind of thin and soft. If there's part of that is light, just leave it out. So there's like this little tuft of feather along his, I'm just going to leave it out. And I'm not worried if it's dark enough yet. We'll get to that point. Now analyze your drawing, analyze your object, and say, is it too wide? Is it, too tall? Not tall enough? Now is the time to alter it. So whatever it needs to happen to it, do it now. Because once we start getting the darks in, the contrast, it's hard to get it back out. So I can clean up things. Use my eraser to draw with. Sometimes it's called negative drawing because you're taking away. So like even the claws, I can come in and I see this little claw, this one right there. You see that little claw right there? That little triangle, it's kind of a curved triangle. I'm going to throw that in there. It's about right in there. I'm not drawing in the claws, I'm drawing in the shadows around the claws, next to the claws. And guess what? The claws are there. You can't have positive without negative. So if all you draw is the negative shapes, the positive shapes will come through. So we want to utilize the entire space of our paper. A good composition comes close to touching 3 of the 4 sides. So we want to make sure we've got good composition, that it's interesting to look at. All right, you ready for a little contrast? You ready for something to punch or pop a little bit? I'm going to zoom into his head because that's the important part. Your eye, your emphasis area goes right to his head. And yes, you explore the texture of the wood and his claws and but your eye kind of rests up in here. This is where it kind of goes back. So it's important to get that really well done. So I'm going to take my cotton swab. I'm just going to do a little bit of blending. I'm just going to start kind of smearing things around. And I'm not going all over. I'm kind of going in little circles. This is getting those shadows, those really soft, light shadows. And I also want to get graphite on my cotton swab. I want this thing to be full of darkness. Because what's going to happen is I'll eventually be able to draw with that cotton swab. And as I do, notice my edges. Look how soft my edges are. So all these edges that are in there are very soft. There's no hard line there. And if there's like some little feathers or something that are really light, and go in with my kneaded eraser, and I can just touch those little areas and lighten them up. Because my graphite is sitting on the surface. And so I can get rid of it easily. Once I get that 6B out and grind that into the surface, I'm never going to get it out. I don't really want to get it out, because that's the reason I put it in there. So you want to get quite a bit of graphite on your cotton swab so that you can draw with it. And once you get enough that you can draw with, look how I can make these little textures of the feathers using my cotton swab. And just go in very lightly. Just put in some little dark areas and you get some nice texture. This is not as dark as we need it. But also look at his head. See the softness that you get there from that edge tells you that bird is not hard. It's not made out of ceramics or metal. It's soft. And I clean up my edges, any edges like his beak especially. Need that to be nice and soft and light. Any light that I needed to put in, I'm going to take that back out with my kneaded eraser. This is negative drawing. So we're just taking out. And you're left with this kind of soft, almost ghost-like image of this bird. And you just want to make sure that it's kind of the way you want it to be. And use that kneaded eraser to get that texture in there. Just touching it. Your kneaded eraser absorbs the graphite. It doesn't rub it off. It actually sucks it out. You can see it on your kneaded eraser. In order to clean it, you just pull it apart, knead it like this. Now I need some contrast. I need this to really pop. I want his eye to just pop like crazy. So I'm going to take my 6B pencil, and remember it's soft, and so it's going to get really dark. And I'm going to take my tracing paper and lay it down there so I can put my hand on the bird without smearing it. I've got my 6B pencil, and I'm going to shift into detail mode. This is detail mode. So I can come back in here, and I know that there's a really dark edge around that eye. So I'm just going to throw in this really dark edge. It might not be everywhere. It looks like it right at the bottom. There's a little space, and then a little bit up the side. That eye needs to be nice and round. So there's his eye. There's a dark edge where his kind of eyebrow kind of comes in. And then he's got this pupil, but right on the pupil there's a little shine. Kind of hard to see. So I'm going to do a little U shape towards the top of his eye. I want to make sure that it's nice and even around the outside. So a little U shape like that. And then I'm just going to keep shading it in. Keep that little dot, that little edge there. So there's a little dot right there, a little shiny area. And then, in order to make the eye look glassy, I'm going to shade a little bit up at the top. Remember to keep that dot in there. So that little dot of light, you want to keep that out. And I'm going to shade in the top like this. And as I come down, I just kind of get lighter and lighter and lighter until there's nothing there. I want to keep that little edge right there very light. Because I can take my cotton swab and I can blend it. I can go from the top to the bottom, from the top to the bottom, and try to leave a little bit of light right there at the very bottom. If you blend out that highlight, just take your kneaded eraser, pinch it down to a little tiny point, and then touch that little highlight. You'll bring it back out nice and bright. See how bright that is? Now this works for every kind of eye. Human eyes, animal eyes, every kind of eye there is. Even alien eyes, I think. So if you got a little bit of technique, this is a great way to start out. And it works for anything. So now I'm going to take my 6B pencil here, and every place I see it really dark, I'm just going to darken in. You can use little circles. You can go back and forth. You can kind of do little dot kinds of things in there if you want. But for me, I like to do little lines, especially in feathers, because feathers are kind of linear as it is. So I can just do little dots or little lines. Any place I see darkness. dark around his eye. Now, this pencil is fairly soft, so you don't have to put a lot of pressure on it for it to do its thing. But how do you get it to go darker? So let's say I want this area to go really dark. I just add pressure to it. And then this area over here, I don't want it to go so dark, so I put less pressure on it. I know I make it look simple, but there is a knack to getting that pressure on there. And it's just something you practice. It's like trying to throw a basketball in the hoop. You know, it just takes practice. Okay, so I got the eye in. The eye looks okay. I'll try to make it a little bit better as we go, but I'm okay with that. Now the beak. Got to get that beak going in there. Come down there. There's a nostril right here. That's his nose. That's where he breathes. And it's just this little U-shape kind of. And then his beak itself has little dark areas, but at the very top of his beak is very light. Don't make a line there at all. Let's just do the shadows. And the beak will come through. It will do its own thing. So in the back of your mind, just think to yourself, I can't draw a line around that beak. You may fight that habit. Don't draw a line around it. Just let it do its thing. So I've got the end. I've got that little shadow going on. He's got a little mouth that's right there. Don't draw a line around that beak. There's a little bit of hair kind of coming in by his brow right there. I'm just going to throw a little bit of that in there. And the top of his head, don't put a line around it. It'll take care of itself. Where these values end, that's where the end of his head goes. Leave out anything that you see that's light. Just leave it out. When in doubt, leave it out. You know that you can always come back into it later. So if it's really light and you think, well, I don't know how light it goes, just leave it out for now. You come back in later. Now, I'm just looking at it, and there's little darker areas within some of that dark area. Just going to add a little bit of pressure. Get those little darker areas to go darker. And even though it looks kind of spotty, I know that I'm going to come in and I'm going to blend it. And when you do, it won't look so spotty. You'll still have dark areas. It won't look so spotty. Just do the dark areas. No lines around anything. Edges will take care of themselves. I'm going to do this section of his head down to here like that. And then I'll blend it. So just look at your object, and you don't have to put them exactly where they go, these little dark shapes, but just be as close as you can. And if you're off, that's okay. Just leave out little areas. Like I say, you can do little circles, or you could go back and forth, whatever is comfortable to you. I had a student teacher a few years back that everything she did was circles. So I'm trying to keep these little shapes going in the direction that those little shapes are flowing, that I can see up there. Does it bother you that there isn't a line around it? Does it bother you that you can't see the top of that beak? It shouldn't. It should look interesting. Your eye makes that connection. Your eye figures it out. But if I do need to see the top of that beak a little bit, I can do that with my cotton swab. And I can just go back in and blend some of that. Soften it up, and if there's some really light areas, like right here in his just below his eye towards his beak, there are some very light grays, and I'm not pressing down with my cotton swab. I'm just barely kind of touching it in some places. In other places you want to really put some pressure on it. I'm just barely blending that out, softening up those edges. Some of those areas need to go a little darker, some a little lighter. Don't be afraid to leave some little areas. That's what gives it that texture, is those little areas. You just leave it out. Like I say, once you've got enough graphite on that cotton swab, let me show you how to do this. Now, the other thing you can do is on your tracing paper, you can, like on a corner or something that you're not using, you can take and scribble in some graphite. You scribble it in. Then you can take that graphite, pull it off with your cotton swab, and then move it over to your drawing. So like right here, where it's nice and soft, and I think I can see some very soft feathers. I'm going to take some of this graphite from here. I'm going to move it over here, and it's a little V shape where his feathers are. They're kind of like little V shapes. So I can go in there, just throw in this little V shape. There's a feather. And there's another one up here. And another one. And so those little soft feathers, I can go in, and I'm just looking at my scrap, at my reference here, and I can throw in those little soft feathers. And look how fast that goes. And again, you don't have to put them everywhere. Some places, if you don't see it, don't draw it. But I could just lift that off of here, start drawing that into my drawing. So there's those soft feathers. Now, the only other thing you could do is you can take your kneaded eraser back in, pull out some light areas. You're still going to have those soft edges, still going to have all that softness there. So I'm going to just take my kneaded eraser and come in and just pull out some little soft areas. I'm just going to little strokes with my kneaded eraser. That'll give it some. Again, you don't have to do it everywhere, just here and there, wherever you feel like it's needed. Look how soft that feather is. And that was easy to do. And I think one of the keys to drawing is to get the texture, to get the feeling correct. because you're conveying that feeling to your viewer. If this bird is soft, you want it to feel soft. If it's made out of metal, well, you're going to do it totally different. Once you're done with the head, everything else will fall into place. I'll show you how to do his little claws and everything too, and especially the little textures on there. Last thing I do is I go in with my pencil again, darken in some of those edges, those areas that I pulled out with the cotton swab. You need that contrast, you need that darkness in there. So you probably notice I go right to the eye because that's the important part. People really look at the eye, and if you can get the eye down, that's what's important. That's your emphasis area. I want that little spot above his beak to almost totally be lost. I mean, there is a little bit of blending that I put in there, so it's not totally lost, but enough that there's no edge right there. That makes it interesting. Don't be afraid to leave things out. A little bit left in his head, and then the head is done. We can move on to the body, and the body's going to go really fast because you really don't pause on the body very much. You go from the feet to the head. So let me show you how to do the body. Just about done here with this head. Okay, here we go. Ready for the body? Okay. So a lot of that body we're going to do with the cotton swab, but we got to have some darkness in there first. So I've got my piece of tracing paper here, and I'm just going to go in and do the same thing we did with the head, but I'm not going to be as exact with it. I'm not going to be as precise. So I've shifted over to this way of drawing on the side of your pencil. It's going to go faster. I'm just going to go little strokes back and forth. I'm just going to throw in the darkness. There's a little bit of light. There's a little light fluffy thing right there. A little darkness. But see how fast this is going? This is really fast. And I don't have to be exact either. That's the cool thing about this. Within his fur, his feathers, there are some little dark areas coming through there. Just take the side of your pencil and scribble those in. So I'm just going to scribble in, scribble, scribble, scribble. Any place there's a little bit of darkness. Scribble, scribble, scribble. Add a little bit of pressure to your darker areas. You notice I'm clear up to the front. That's so I can add pressure. On his wings, where that light area is, just leave the light area out and do the dark. So, for example, I'm just going to come in and just scribble in some of this darkness. And then there's this pattern that goes on over his wing. You just do a little shape like that, leave a little space, do another one. And look at his wing. You're trying to get the attitude without the exactness. Okay, just as long as it's close, that's what's important. I'm just leaving out little sections like that because we can blend those. If it's just kind of gray, just use the gray, not as much pressure. We can always come back in and take some out. No line around things though, just let it go. Your edges are taking care of themselves. This is not hard, this is not bad. This is pretty easy, isn't it? Piece of cake? Yeah. Then all that gets blended. We'll take our kneaded eraser and lighten it up, and it'll be just fine. Piece of cake. And some of those little gray areas too, you could just leave those out, knowing that you can use your kneaded eraser or your cotton swab to get those in. I guess if you think about it, really that's all drawing is just kind of a dance between dark and light. Okay, you guys ready for the feet? There's these little bumpy textures in the feet, and there's a couple of ways you can do that. Once you get enough graphite on your cotton swab, and I'm just going to go over some of this dark area here, try to pull off some of that graphite, then you can come back in and you can use that cotton swab to kind of drag across the feet to get those little wrinkles. And you can even use that and you can just touch it, just touch, and you get these little bumpy kind of marks on there. You can use the top of it if you want, whatever works. But I'm just using my cotton swab to get these little bumpy lines. Then I'm just going to come back into it with my kneaded eraser, bring out some of the highlights, and you got it. Well, I have this. I'm just going to go into that soft feathery stuff and just kind of fleck it like I did up here. Just going to go into it. Just put in my darkness wherever it needs to go. Don't be afraid to leave some out. That gray shadow, you just kind of blend that in. Now that you have lots of stuff on your cotton swab, try drawing with it. Go over and do some of those feathers. If there were grass or leaves in here, we could use that for grass or leaves. This piece of wood, can use that. This piece of wood. Don't forget your kneaded eraser, because that can be a powerful tool for you too. It's like all that little light area that I just blended over and I think, oh, I took out too much. Go back into it with your kneaded eraser and just pull out a little bit. There's a little bit along the wing. There's that fluffy fur. You can pull it out. Maybe a little bit here and there in between some of those feathers that I blended too much, but I can come back in and get some of that texture back into it. You have to keep pinching your kneaded eraser and keep cleaning it, but it does work. Just light touches, just here and there. You can always go back in and add more. And in the feet, all I have to do is touch some of those areas with my kneaded eraser. That'll bring out that edge. And the wood, if you want a really great texture for wood, you just kind of use a skippy pencil. In other words, as I go through it, I just kind of skip along. Skip, 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 skip. I just do these little lines kind of going through it. And you just kind of skip over some of it. There's little lines like this in the direction the grain goes. You blend that, touch it with your kneaded eraser here and there, and you got it. And just like anything else, you don't have to draw a line around your wood. Just let it go. That edge, it'll be created by your shadows. Okay, if you have a line around your objects, just remind yourself, oh, can't do that. The claws, didn't draw a line around the claws, just do the dark areas. So really all drawing is just darks and lights. Yes, it takes practice. On your wood, you do the same thing that you did with your bird. You can smooth it out. Go in the direction that the grain of the wood flows. Don't be afraid to leave little areas out if it's light. Just leave it out. You just come back in with your kneaded eraser. Pull out a couple little edges. And you got it. When you're all done, a good place to sign it would be maybe right down there by the wood, his tail, or maybe above it, like right up in here, or over here. I think I'll sign it over here. It's probably a good place to sign it. If your signature is kind of messy, try to make it a little smaller, a little less obtrusive. A good signature is part of the composition. Thanks for joining me on this little journey. And remember, art makes life better. Hope you have a lovely day.